Bienvenidos al segundo capítulo de Anton Kreil, la historia de un trader de Goldman Sachs, y hoy nos cuenta cuánto capital ha estado gestionando a lo largo de estos años, cuando él estuvo como trader en Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers y JP Morgan. Vamos a verlo.
So you're looking at major indices versus major currency pairs. Major indices are 1.5 to 2 times more volatile than major currency pairs historically. And that's over 50 years of data. So it's pretty significant. What I would say is split up your positioning.
Nos comenta aquí el señor que los índices son bastante más volátiles que los pares de divisa.
Your positioning, and be a little bit diverse, where you've got exposure to equities, at least half or the majority, commodities and forex, and maybe some cash and interest rate situations where you can take tiny positions or day trade essentially with opportunities that happen in very small periods of time. I think your time horizon really, if you're starting out, should be 1 to 3 months on every position.
¿Habéis escuchado? O sea que si alguien está empezando, lo ideal sería que su periodo temporal sea de 1 a 3 meses, o sea, aguantar la posición de 1 a 3 meses, ¿ok? En función de lo que él nos está comentando de productos que no estén apalancados y cosas así, ¿vale?
Across the asset classes, but percentage split, personally I do 65% equities because that's probably the most volatile asset class.
¿Ves? O sea, que él hace un 65% de acciones, ¿vale? Porque es lo más volátil. Pero claro, tened en cuenta también que no tenemos el mismo apalancamiento que si tradeamos en Bitcoin o tradeamos en el SP500 en futuro, ¿ok?
20% commodities, 10% in forex, and keep cash or margin in reserve, so you can actually take advantage of very short-term opportunities.
Qué bueno. Dice que tiene ahí una parte también en materias primas, otra parte en forex, y luego que una parte la deja líquida por si hay movimientos de mercado pues interesantes, puede aprovecharlo. Hostia, ahí parecía que había uno que estaba anestesiado, ¿no? Mira este, chaval. Fua. Parece que le va a dar algo.
When you want to start trading, the first issue coming with it, you have 100 different brokers, and in your opinion, which criteria should we use to find the right broker?
Bueno, el criterio para encontrar un buen broker.
I think it's important to know whether the broker's taking the other side of your trades, first of all. So,
importante, dice, hay que tomar en cuenta si el corredor está tomando la otra parte del mercado, o sea, si te está haciendo la contraparte, si está siendo market maker contigo.
I mean, what you'll find, there's a lot of conflict of interest in the industry when you're a retail trader. There's obviously the commission situation and the spread situation. Just because spreads are tight and commissions are low doesn't mean it's a good thing, because all that means is that the brokers are going to try and turn your account over.
Claro, dice, las comisiones muy bajas o los spreads muy reducidos no suelen ser buena causa, ¿no? Aquí, por ejemplo, en nuestro país, en España, vemos que hay brokers que tienen productos que se llaman CFDs y, bueno, pues son un derivado y al final lo que hacen es darte esa contraparte y, bueno, pues ahí te pueden poner comisión cero, claro, porque si tú pierdes, ellos van a ganar, ¿vale? Y luego hay algunos que son como un híbrido y que una parte de las posiciones sí que la sacan a mercado. Esto lo hemos hablado más de una vez y por eso hay que tener mucho cuidado, primero, con qué broker tomamos nuestras posiciones, por lo que nos está comentando aquí Anton Kreil.
More aggressively, so you pay them as much money. So they'll be telling you to do things that aren't necessarily good for you. So obviously cost of trading is an issue, but I think it's really important that you find brokers that aren't aggressively taking the other sides of your trades, because that's a huge conflict of interest. So in the products like spread betting and CFDs, a lot of them still do.
Claro, un día discutía yo con un broker por teléfono y le decía, porque yo ya había estado trabajando como broker, entonces entendía cómo funcionaba. Y le decía, oye, pero ¿qué sentido tiene que a un cliente tú le vayas a decir dónde comprar y vender y que tú seas la contraparte? porque entonces nunca le vas a decir dónde comprar y vender bien, ¿no? Y no terminaba de entenderlo, pero le estaba haciendo la pregunta, claro, no terminaba de entenderlo o se estaba haciendo el tonto, una de dos.
On the other side of your positions. So they would actually prefer that you didn't make money.
We'll take one more, yeah?
So you see sort of the being kind of downside of brokerage fees reducing, in the future obviously cracking down. Trading obviously has always been divided between trading and broking. Obviously, you see what the brokerage can take more of an advantage in that sense of the, like you say to that chap there, the trading in that sense.
Listen, there's no doubt about it, trading's become cheaper, which isn't great for the brokerage industry. But what also happened for the
Claro, al fin y al cabo, cuando empezaron a entrar plataformas de inversión online, pues el tema de futuros y todo bajó bastante. O sea, el porcentaje que se cobraba por los futuros es bastante más barato.
brokerage industry in the last 10 years was the switch from dial-up to broadband. So the market size is now much bigger than it was 15 years ago, because now everybody can trade from their bedroom. So the market participants are far greater than they used to be. So the brokerage industry overall has been downsized. I think broking actually, when you're starting out in the markets, it's quite good to be a broker for a couple of years, because you can learn a lot of things that happen on the other side. So when you actually go out and trade with your own money.
Dice, cuando empiezas en esto es bueno ser corredor, aunque sea un par de años, para entender lo que hay en la otra parte. Y eso está bastante curioso, la verdad que sí.
Or other people's money, you know where the conflict of interest lies. Yeah. So you can actually talk to people in this language and totally understand their business. So I think it's quite healthy to do it for a couple of years, because you'll learn about it. You know, my function in the investment banks was twofold: market making and proprietary trading.
Is it an easy transfer from broking to trading?
It's not that easy, but as long as you go into it from the outset and say, I'm only going to stay a couple of years, and make people that you want to work for understand that the reason why you're doing it is to learn, you know, not for the money and to rip people's faces off. Yeah. Then it's okay. It's quite healthy. People will look on it favourably, but you've got to obviously have the context, and you've got to go into it with the mindset that you're not going to be there forever. You're only going in to learn, so you can go elsewhere.
Vale, te está diciendo que entres si vas a entrar en un broker, que entres, pero con la mentalidad de, oye, me voy, ¿sabes? Que quiero hacerlo por mi cuenta.
So you've worked at 3 of the biggest investment banks. Would you say there's much of a difference in the culture, or the culture of success between the banks?
Uf, qué buena pregunta. Qué buena pregunta. La cultura del éxito en estos grandes bancos de inversión, ¿no? Recordamos que en el primer capítulo vimos que estuvo en Goldman, en Lehman Brothers y en JP Morgan.
I'd say there's a massive difference between Goldman Sachs and the rest of the market. Obviously, I'm going to be biased because I started there, but you know, back then, even I would say even now, like the best people in the market work there, and you know, they're not unapproachable people. You know, they're generally just normal people, but with a very strong work ethic and intelligence. That's a different type of intelligence to the rest of the market. It's a curious mind, but with a very, very strong work ethic, but also very entrepreneurial as well.
Estoy escuchando, ¿no? O sea, que la gente que trabaja en Goldman, como que para él es como súper top y bueno, y que tienen contratado a los mejores del mundo. Con lo cual, son personas que están ahí por y para su trabajo y con ideas nuevas constantemente, para que veáis lo que hay que estudiar y lo que hay que prepararse si queremos estar constantemente tradeando los mercados, porque cuando nosotros hacemos una operación y le quitamos dinero a alguien, probablemente sea a estas instituciones, ¿sabes? En nuestra medida, obviamente, pero para que veáis que hay que estar muy preparado para eso, ¿vale?
You know, being able to create new products, create new situations that there's going to be a lot of demand for, and this type of innovation, I think it's very important in financial markets, because to satisfy client demands in financial markets is very, very tough, because it's a very overbroked market. Goldman are head and shoulders above anybody else in terms of doing that. So, you know, if I'm going to be biased, obviously the culture there is very, very different to the rest of the market. You know, for me, the culture when I was around, because I think it's dependent on the time that you're in the market, the time you're actually a professional. I saw the culture in the city generally change from a culture of working for the company and making company profits to a political culture of greed and trying to make money for yourself rather than for the benefit of the company.
Que la cultura iba cambiando también en ese sentido de, en vez de sentirte como para ganar dinero para la empresa, de ya empezar a escalar tú y empezar a ganar dinero tú, ¿sabes? Eso creo que va en la condición del ser humano, ¿eh?
So because there was a lot of capacity and a lot of slack in the industry at the time, a lot of people who were very untalented were being hired to do very important jobs. So, I mean, we saw what happened in the end, but you know, the industry now has the capacity's tightened to a point where it's getting to a stage where it's about right. But back then, because of the capacity issues, the culture was very, very self-interest motivated, and a lot of it was greed, with a lot of people who were very untalented working in very important positions.
What kind
O sea, es que yo estaba leyendo documentos de personas que trabajaban allí y podían cobrar perfectamente 2 millones de dólares en Wall Street, o sea, de salario anual. Que para ser un salario corporativo es un salario bastante alto. En Wall Street, pues no creo que sea tantísimo, ¿no? Pero, hombre, que ya son salarios, o sea, por norma general, un ingeniero informático y tal solía cobrar unos 200, 400 mil dólares, ¿vale? En Wall Street. O los que preparaban los algoritmos y tal cuando empezó todo el tema de la high frequency trading. Pero 2 o 3 millones ya era como un jefe de por lo menos de un equipo grande, y luego ya de ahí en adelante también, ¿sabes? Pero, hostia, son salarios interesantes, ¿eh?
kind of account sizes were you managing by the end of that investment banking career?
Buenísimo, buenísimo. ¿Qué tipo de cuenta administrabas al final de esa carrera de inversión? Buenísimo. A ver cuánto estuvo gestionando, que ya nos dijo con cuánto empezó en el capítulo anterior.
Yeah, I mean, the largest account sizes were actually at Goldman, because there's more of a risk culture. So started off with like $10 million on day one. The more money you make, the more you progress. When leaving Goldman, there was a team of us, 4 people, running about $500 million.
Empezó con 10 millones y terminó manejando 500 millones de dólares.
On the trading desk, which was about a quarter of the trading desk's exposure. So it was the number one team. We were doing TMT, so technology, media, telecoms. Then Lehman Brothers, very strange situation. You know, walking in, most guys around me didn't have more than $10, $20 million of risk when I arrived. Within 2 years, this was 2004. Within 2 years, everybody had $200 to $300 million of risk.
Al principio en Lehman Brothers igual. Empezó con 10, 20 y terminaron con 200, 300. Los chicos que trabajaban para él ya.
So, you know, really at that time, guys like me were brought in to raise the risk profile of the desk. To say that it got out of hand is an understatement. That's one of the reasons why I left Lehman. Because a lot of people around who were there previously with very little risk exposure, in a very short space of time had a lot of risk. So,
claro, es que lo que comenta él era que a él se le contrataba para llevar esa parte de alto riesgo, ¿sabes? De operativas de más alto riesgo, ¿no? Como es en el tema de futuros, acciones, todos estos temas. Pero que en esta empresa no tenían esa cultura de asimilar tanto riesgo, ¿no? En Goldman sí, porque bueno, Goldman ha sido mucho más agresivo toda la historia, pero en Lehman no. Y luego fíjate también pues el riesgo que estaban asumiendo con los créditos que estaban dando por ahí y las hipotecas subprime, ¿sabes? O sea, pero curiosísimo, curiosísimo, y que, claro, como en la cultura de la empresa ya hay personas que están operando, por eso es tan difícil muchas veces cambiar la mentalidad de un trader guerrero cuando ya viene haciendo las cosas muy mal, porque tienes que trabajar mucho con esa persona para poder cambiarle esos patrones y que empiece a hacer las cosas de manera correcta, que es lo que explica él aquí, ¿sabes? De, joder, había gente que no había asumido riesgo en su vida y ahora le ponías a operar con 10, 20 o 200 millones y decías, wow, ¿esto qué es? ¿Sabes?
Not necessarily deserving that risk. Then JP Morgan, same situation, hardly anybody had risk around. But then I come in and ended up with $100 million of risk as the limit. So at any time, $50 to $100 million. But the biggest risk run is probably like $200 to $300 million.
O sea que gestionó 500 en Goldman, entre 200 y 300, ok, en Lehman Brothers y hasta 100 millones en JP Morgan. O sea que son unos 900 casi 1.000 millones de dólares. ¿Sabes lo que ha gestionado este señor? Está bastante interesante, ¿eh?
Personally, but working in a team on 500.
What about the work-life balance? Was there a work-life balance?
Forget about work.
No hay equilibrio. Hubo equilibrio entre el trabajo y la vida personal, tío. O sea, estás gestionando 500 millones. Creo que no te da para tener una vida personal muy extensa.
Forget about work-life balance in those days. It just didn't exist. I mean, I remember, a typical day was wake up 5 o'clock, taxi drivers outside at 5:30, and you're in the office by 10 to 6. Then the market closes 4:35, but then you're trading the US till 9, 10 p.m. in the evening. And then if you've got situations in Asia, then the traders in Hong Kong will be calling you at 2 in the morning. And then also there's a social side to the business where obviously in a bull market, traders are asked to go out all the time with the salespeople because the clients want to meet the traders, as in the people who are trading their positions. So you typically be out 2 or 3 nights a week till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
O sea que claro, para conocer a los inversores y eso tenían que salir 1 o 2 veces por semana, aparte de todo eso, ¿no? De levantarse a las 5, llegar a las 6 de la mañana a la oficina, estar muchos días tradeando hasta por la tarde.
I remember one situation stands out, in my mind in terms of private life. I remember starting to date this girl, and then after a couple of months, we were getting on very well, and she lived around the corner from me in North London. So I said, well, why don't you just spend more than a few nights a week here? Why don't you just pretend to move in a little bit? Put some clothes in the wardrobe. But I spent a
Había conocido una chica y quería que se mudase allí a su apartamento, ¿sabes?
But I spent a month basically telling her and warning her, you're not going to like it if you live with me. She's like, oh no, it'll be fine. She told me for months, it'll be fine. And then I came in from a client night out one morning at about 3 in the morning, fell on the bed, slept in my suit, got back up, 5 a.m., got under the shower, put a new suit on, and as I was getting dressed, because I used to have to get dressed in the dark, because that would wake her up, as I was getting dressed, I could feel this presence behind me. And this was after about 2 weeks of her kind of moving in. And I kind of turned around, and she was standing on my bed, holding her hair in bunches, and just screamed at me, "What the hell are you doing?" And my response was, I guess the honeymoon period's over then.
Es normal porque, joder, con ese ritmo de vida, o sea, está bien complejo, la verdad. Yo cuando estaba en Madrid tampoco tenía tiempo ni a respirar, ¿sabes? Y eso que no era lo mismo ni de coña. Pero llevas un ritmo de vida que es, si quieres avanzar encima más, cuando llegas del trabajo, poder darle más caña, estudiar más, hacer más, pues tienes que estar dedicado al 100%. Y yo estaba dedicado al 100%, ¿sabes? No me llegué a dormir en el traje, nunca, pero casi.
And we had to discuss the whole situation when I got back that evening. But essentially, private life, Monday to Friday, awful in that market. Weekends, catching up on sleep. and then it all starts again Monday morning at 5 a.m.
Claro, al final decías que los lunes o sea, los días entre semana tenía que ponerse al día con el trabajo y los fines de semana con el sueño, ¿sabes? Porque le faltaba por todos lados.